How can we keep our brains young? The leading researchers in the field of aging have been asking this question for decades, and now we're starting to get some answers. What does science say about how we can keep our minds sharp as we age? Are there any supplements or lifestyle changes that can help us retain our cognitive abilities as we enter our golden years? Let's talk about it. Hi everyone, I'm a psychiatrist and I make mental health education videos. The most important factor in how well your brain ages is genes. If you have a family history of dementia, or if you have a genetic variant like APOE4, which increases your risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, you're not going to be able to completely avoid the effects of aging on your brain. But even if your genes load the dice against you, there are things you can do to mitigate the risk. Scientists who study aging are now thinking about the brain differently. Instead of thinking about all the changes in the brain that happen with aging as being part of a uniform process that happens to everyone, they're realizing that these changes may be the result of different pathways that people fall into over their lifetime. It's more accurate to think of the brain as having a certain reserve capacity. You start off with a certain amount of brain cells and connections between those cells, and then your behaviors throughout life chip away at that reserve. So you can think of your brain reserve as being like an asset that you have to manage, and you want to protect it and build it up while you're young because when it's gone, it's not easily replaced. So what can you do to preserve your cognitive abilities? Well, first, your brain needs fuel, and if you don't give it the right kind of fuel, it's going to rust just like a car that isn't driven will eventually have its engine rust out. A lack of stimulation causes your brain to weaken just like inactivity weakens your muscles. This is why one of the best ways to prevent cognitive decline is to keep learning new things, take up a new hobby or challenge yourself with something mentally stimulating. Now, unfortunately, we are living in a culture that doesn't value mental stimulation. We are surrounded by so much entertainment, it's easy to fall into the trap of passive entertainment. But passive entertainment doesn't keep your mind sharp. So instead of watching TV, go find something that challenges your mind. I know that sounds easier said than done, especially for people who are already retired and maybe don't feel motivated to learn something new. But I've talked about this before in my video on how to get yourself to do the things you know you should be doing. Once you get started, though, you'll find that learning new things will become a source of pleasure. Just like people who start working out realize that exercise feels good, once you establish a routine, your brain will start craving mental stimulation. And when that happens, you'll be less likely to let entropy win. Another thing that can chip away at your brain's reserve is chronic stress. If you chronically overactivate your body's stress response system, you can cause damage to your brain. Chronic stress impairs your ability to remember things. So, if you're feeling stressed out, try relaxation techniques like meditation or deep breathing exercises to calm down. And what about alcohol? How does that affect our brains? Drinking too much alcohol can lead to what's called alcohol-related dementia. There is no safe level of drinking when it comes to preserving your cognitive abilities. So, if you're concerned about your brain health, it's probably best to cut back or quit drinking altogether. Alright, so those are the biggest factors that influence how well your brain ages, but there are some other things you can do to protect your brain. The next way you can help your brain is to eat a healthy diet. There's lots of research showing that a poor diet can increase your risk of developing dementia. Diets that are high in saturated fat, added sugar, or processed foods can cause inflammation in the brain, which accelerates cognitive decline. Now, I'm not saying that you can't ever enjoy a burger or a bowl of ice cream, but if those are staples of your diet, you're going to pay for it with your cognitive abilities. The Mediterranean diet has been associated with improved cognitive performance, and it consists of fruits, vegetables, whole grains and beans, nuts and seeds, and it's low in meat and dairy. Next is physical exercise. Scientists are finding that physical exercise has a huge impact on our cognitive abilities. In fact, the data is pretty conclusive that if you engage in regular physical activity, you are going to reduce your risk of cognitive decline. Exercise helps increase blood flow to the brain, and it helps with sleep and stress reduction. These are 3 things that have a direct impact on your memory. Try to incorporate at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise into your daily routine. If you don't feel up to exercising every day, though, you can still reap the benefits by exercising 2 to 3 times a week. What about sleep? Sleep deprivation causes cognitive impairment. It makes it difficult to concentrate and to remember things. It also increases stress levels and lowers your self-control. If you aren't getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night, you need to make some changes to improve your sleep hygiene. I've talked about sleep a lot on this channel, so I'm going to link to my video on improving your sleep at the end of this one. The next thing you can do to protect your brain is to monitor your chronic medical conditions. Having poorly controlled diabetes, for example, can cause vascular damage to the brain, which can lead to dementia. High blood pressure is another vascular risk factor that can accelerate cognitive decline, and it's important to get your cholesterol checked because high cholesterol is a risk factor for strokes, which can cause lasting damage to the brain. I'm sure you've heard of the Greek physician Hippocrates. He was the father of medicine, and he was credited with saying, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure." It's easier to prevent problems than it is to fix them. So, if you want to maintain your cognitive abilities as you age, focus on preventing the things that could harm your brain. Don't smoke, limit your alcohol intake, eat a healthy diet, exercise, and control your chronic medical conditions. But what if you've already experienced some cognitive decline? Is there anything you can do to stop it? There are some supplements that show promise in slowing cognitive decline, but they won't reverse it. There is no pill that will restore your brain to its former glory, but there are some supplements that may slow down the rate of decline. The first supplement to consider is called donepezil. Donepezil is a medication that's used to treat Alzheimer's disease. It's a type of drug called a cholinesterase inhibitor, and it works by increasing the levels of acetylcholine in the brain. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that becomes depleted in people with Alzheimer's disease. By increasing acetylcholine levels, donepezil improves memory and thinking skills. The problem with donepezil is that it only slows the progression of Alzheimer's disease by a few months, and it can also cause side effects like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and it can make you very drowsy, so it's really not that great of an option. There are also medications called memantine and tacrine, which are approved by the FDA for treating moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease. Memantine works by blocking the excessive amounts of glutamate, which is another neurotransmitter that becomes dysregulated in Alzheimer's disease. It's thought that reducing glutamate levels can help prevent the death of brain cells. Tacrine works in a similar way by inhibiting acetylcholinesterase. The problem with these medications is that they only work in people with moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease. They also don't seem to be effective in slowing the progression of the disease. So again, they're not that great of options. There are other supplements that have shown some promise in slowing cognitive decline, but they haven't been FDA approved yet. One is called Citizen. Citizen is an herbal supplement that's derived from the ginkgo biloba plant. It's thought to work by improving blood flow to the brain. Another supplement that shows promise is resveratrol. Resveratrol is a natural compound that's found in the skin of red grapes, and it's also present in berries, peanuts, and chocolate. It's thought to work by reducing inflammation in the brain. And another one is called curcumin. Curcumin is an antioxidant that's found in the root vegetable turmeric. Curcumin works by reducing amyloid beta accumulation, which is a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. So these supplements might be worth trying, but keep in mind that they're not going to restore your brain to its former glory. The last thing I'll mention are brain games. These are fun ways to stimulate your brain. The theory behind brain games is that they challenge your mind, and they help improve your cognitive abilities. Unfortunately, there's no scientific evidence to show that brain games actually improve cognitive abilities. In fact, a recent study published in the journal Nature found that playing brain games didn't improve cognitive abilities in older adults. However, the participants in that study were playing a computer-based game, and it only took them 10 minutes to complete. Maybe the reason that brain game did not work in that study is because it was challenging enough. I personally enjoy playing the game Lumosity because it's challenging. So if you're going to use a brain game to keep your mind sharp, make sure it's challenging. Thanks for watching. See you next time.